For years, I was the king of excuses. Seriously. If you could think of a reason not to do something, I had already perfected it. My life wasn't some slow decline. It was a fortress of justifications for mediocrity, for procrastination, and for being afraid. I'd tell myself I was busy when I was just being unproductive. I'd tell myself I needed to wait for the right moment when really I was just terrified of trying. I built a fortress of reasons why my life was the way it was, and I was the prisoner trapped inside. And then, in the span of just a few months, those walls didn't just crumble. They imploded. I lost the job I always complained about, the relationship I completely took for granted, and the self-respect I thought was untouchable. I was left with absolutely nothing but a deep, suffocating shame and a despair that felt like the floor of the universe. And from that lowest possible point, I found the one mental switch that let me rebuild. If you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever felt like your own life is a cage, this is the one lesson that will change everything. The king of excuses. Let me paint you a picture of the old me. On the surface, things probably looked fine. And that's the most dangerous place to be, isn't it? Not terrible, just fine. I had a decent job, but I'd been stuck in the same role for years, watching other people get promotions. My excuse? Oh, the corporate culture is just too political. I'm not a schmoozer. The truth? I was scared to ask for more responsibility because I was terrified I'd fail. In my relationship, I was distant. My excuse? I'm just an introvert, you know. I need a lot of space to recharge. The truth? I was avoiding any real intimacy because the last time I was truly vulnerable, I got burned. So I built a wall and called it a personality trait. My health was slowly going downhill. I was tired all the time, eating junk and barely moving. My excuse? I'm just so stressed from work, I don't have the energy to cook or exercise. The truth? It was just easier to grab takeout and scroll on my phone than to find the discipline to change. Every single part of my life was run by a convenient lie. And the most dangerous lie of all was the one I told myself every single day. I'll start tomorrow. It's a subtle poison. It doesn't feel like you're failing. It feels like you're always on the verge of succeeding. You're just one good night's sleep, one less stressful week, or one motivational video away from turning it all around. But tomorrow is a ghost. It's a horizon that just keeps moving further away. My life became a long series of neglected todays for a magical tomorrow that was never going to come. I wasn't living, I was waiting. Do you ever feel like that? Like you're living in the lobby of your own life, just waiting for the main event to finally start. That was me. I had convinced myself I was a victim of my circumstances, just a background character in my own movie. I truly believed my problems were external, a bad boss, a busy schedule, a tough past. I had no idea that the real problem wasn't out there, it was in my head. The implosion. When the collapse finally came, it was fast. It started with a project at work. I'd put it off, of course, using my classic "I've just got too much on my plate" excuse. The deadline rushed up on me, and I submitted something that was, to put it nicely, garbage. It was sloppy, poorly thought out, and a perfect reflection of my total lack of effort. For the first time, my excuses weren't enough. They put me on a performance review plan. The shame was instant. The guy who thought he was too good for corporate politics was now the guy who couldn't even do his basic job. At the same time, that wall I'd built in my relationship had gotten so high and so thick that there was nothing left between us. The silence was deafening. One night, she finally said the words I'd been dreading, but also kind of expecting. "I feel like I'm living with a ghost." And she left. The fortress of solitude I'd built to protect myself had become my own personal prison. The final blow came 2 months later. That performance plan at work? It was just a formality. I was let go. So in about 90 days, my entire identity was stripped away. The job title, the relationship, the comfortable routine, poof, gone. I found myself sitting in my now too expensive apartment, just staring at a termination letter with the echo of a closing door still ringing in my ears. That was my rock bottom. It wasn't some dramatic movie scene. It was a quiet, crushing, and deeply personal emptiness. The constant hum of anxiety I'd lived with for years was gone, replaced by a terrifying silence. I had nothing to blame and no one to point to. All the excuses were gone, and all that was left was me and the wreckage I'd created. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I was just a shell, filled with nothing but shame and the gut-wrenching feeling that I did this to myself. The mental switch. For about a week, I just existed. I barely ate. I didn't talk to anyone. I just sat in that silence, drowning in regret, replaying every mistake, every lazy choice, every single excuse. And it was there, on my kitchen floor at 2 a.m., that the shift happened. I was thinking about everything I'd lost. My job, my partner, my stability. And I kept asking myself, why did this happen to me? Over and over and over. It's a victim's question. But then, a different question cut through the noise. It was quiet at first, and then it got louder. What if that's the wrong question? What if the right question isn't, why did this happen to me, but what am I going to do about it? That was it. That was the switch. It sounds so simple, but it's the most profound shift a person can possibly make. It's the shift from being a victim of your life to being the agent of your life. Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote that you can take everything from a person but one thing: the freedom to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. I'd lost my job, my relationship, my savings. But nobody could take away my ability to decide what to do next. That power was mine. For years, I had been obsessing over the stimulus, the difficult boss, the past hurt, the feeling of being tired. I was living as if the stimulus and the response were fused together. Bad thing happens, I feel bad. End of story. But the switch was realizing there's a space between stimulus and response. In that space is your power. In that space is your freedom. A rude email from your boss doesn't have to equal a ruined day. A failed relationship doesn't have to equal a belief that you're unlovable. A job loss doesn't have to mean your career is over. These are just events. They are the stimulus. The response? That's up to you. I stopped being a thermometer, just reflecting the temperature of whatever room I was in. I decided to become a thermostat, to set my own temperature, no matter what was happening outside. This isn't about pretending bad things don't happen. It's about accepting what's happened and taking 100% responsibility, not for the event, but for your response to it. The rebuilding now, this mental switch from victim to agent, wasn't a magic wand. My problems didn't just vanish, but my relationship to my problems changed completely. Rebuilding was a slow, brick-by-brick process. The first brick was my health. The old me would have said, I'm too depressed to work out. The new me said, I'm depressed. Therefore, I will go for a walk. I didn't wait to feel like it. I knew I'd probably feel the same way tomorrow, so why not just do it today? The response was my choice. It started with a 10-minute walk, then 15. I started cooking one simple, healthy meal a day. They weren't huge changes, but they were votes for the new person I wanted to be. The second brick was my career. The old me blamed the economy and my former boss. The new me looked at my termination and asked, "Okay, what's the lesson here? What skills am I missing?" I had to swallow my pride and accept the painful truth that my skills were outdated. I enrolled in an online course for a certification in my field. I spent 4 hours every single day studying. It was humbling. It was hard. There were so many days I wanted to quit. But every time I opened that textbook, I was choosing my response. I wasn't a victim of a changing job market. I was a student of it. Maybe for you, it's not a job. Maybe it's a difficult relationship. The victim asks, "Why are they treating me this way?" The agent asks, "Why am I accepting this treatment, and what am I going to do about it?" Maybe it's a creative project you've been putting off. The victim says, "I'm just not inspired." The agent says, "I will sit down and write for 15 minutes, inspired or not." You see the shift? It moves you from a place of total powerlessness to a place of infinite power. Your circumstances can only define you if you give them permission. The pain is real, but your identity is not the pain. My life today isn't perfect. It was never supposed to be. I still have hard days. But the difference is, I no longer see setbacks as my identity. I see them as feedback. Hitting rock bottom was the most painful experience of my life, but it was also the most important. It stripped away every last excuse and forced me to find the one thing no one could ever take from me, my power to choose my response. The collapse of the life I thought I wanted made space for the life I actually needed. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your current challenges. You are the architect of your actions. You don't need to see the whole staircase, you just need to take the next right step. The greatest lesson I learned is this: your rock bottom is not a burial. It is a planting. It is the solid ground from which you can finally, truly begin to grow. If this story resonated with you, I'd be honored if you subscribed. But more importantly, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment and share one area in your life where you can shift from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What am I going to do about it?" Let's build a community of architects, not victims. Thanks for listening.